Hey everyone, Jordan here. Today we're going to be looking at another motherboard. We have got the MSI Mag B860 Tomahawk Wi-Fi. Now the B860 boards to Intel are very much like the B850 boards to the X870 from AMD. They're a little bit cheaper, they do lack certain features to make them a little bit more affordable. One of the big things with the B8 series boards is going to be lack of overclocking support, and we also have a little bit of reduction on the PCI lanes from 20 down to 14, but it's perfectly enough for a graphics card and some standard storage options. So let's get into the box. We have got the board first and foremost. I'm going to just take that out though so we can look at the accessories that's included. So underneath we've got a single SATA cable. There's one right angle connector. We then have MSI's little adapter cable. This has a very small header on the motherboard and then breaks off to a 4-pin for a fan control, then also a 3-pin 5V RGB connector. We've got a front panel extension cable, make things a little bit tidier. Then also our Wi-Fi antenna. This does support Wi-Fi 7 on this board, also Bluetooth 5.4. We've got some quick installation guides and documentation, and then finally we've also got another standoff for an M.2. Just moved the motherboard there and also found the little remover for the M.2 standoffs. Use that to screw those into the board. So here we have the B860 Tomahawk. They're keeping that kind of green aesthetic that we saw on the X870 boards. It's a bit of a Marmite thing, you're going to love it or you hate it. It is pretty limey. Look a little bit closer, we have got a 12 duet rail power system on this board. Pretty beefy VRM for a B series board there as well. So if you can just see down those heat sinks there, covering all those MOSFETs and chokes. So let's have a bit of a zoom in for a closer look. On the top left we have got a system fan 2. Moving along we have got our 8 pins on the right hand side this time, so 2 8s. I think B760 had an 8 and a 4, so a little step up here again. Those are also solid pins. We've then got another 4-pin fan header on the right, that's CPU fan 1. And then on the right hand side we've got a pump fan header as well, another 4-pin. System fan 1 is below that. We then have a standard 12V RGB connector and then a addressable 5V. Below that we've got the debug LEDs, very handy things to tell what's going on with the system when it posts. Of course our 24-pin, we then got our USB-C header below that, that's going to be 10 gigabits per second. On the right angle we have got a USB 3 type A, that's going to be 5 gigabits per second. There's also 4 SATA 6 gigabit ports a bit further down. Below the SATA ports we've then got system fan 5, so that's another 4-pin. We've also got the front panel just below that as well. Then another 3-pin 5V addressable RGB connector. There's another 4-pin fan header. We then have 2 USB 2 headers, very good for hubs and things like that. We have an additional PCI connector if you need some additional power to the PCI lanes. Thunderbolt header, very nice thing to see if you want to add in an additional Thunderbolt card. We've then got another 3-pin 5V addressable, so that's a total of 3 on this board. We've then got another standard 12V addressable, and then our front panel audio on the bottom left of the board. This is going to be using a Realtek ALC 897 codec, but like I said on the previous motherboards, if you're really serious about sound, grab a sound card, you won't look back. Then our last fan header is tucked in between the NVMe heatsink and also the VRM heatsink. So that's a maximum of 7 4-pin fan headers on this board. So going back up to our socket, of course the LGA 1851 socket there for the Core Ultra series processors. To the right of the socket we've got our DIMM slots. This board is going to support up to 256 gigabytes of DDR5, up to 9,400 mega transfers per second out of the box. Got some really wicked DDR5 speeds with these boards. So going down to our expansion and storage slots, our first one we have a quick release NVMe slot. There's a 80mm thermal pad on the back of that, so up to an 80mm Gen 5 drive. There's also a little quick release on there as well to easily put in your drive. That will then just go and slot in place and clip down, very easy. We've also got another one down below, we'll need a screwdriver for that one. So then taking that heatsink off, we've got a big old thermal pad that runs the span along the back, and then there's support for additional 2 Gen 4 drives up to 80mm. So that's a total of 3 NVMe's on this board, 1 Gen 5 up to 80mm, and then 2 Gen 4 off the chipset up to 80mm. Then for our PCI slots, we have our top armoured one, a Gen 5. Also has the really nice locking mechanism that MSI use. We've then got an X1 slot down below that. That again runs from the chipset, and then another chipset X16 down below it there as well, but that is wired to X4, but those are perfectly good enough for capture cards or sound cards and things like that. So finally moving to the rear I/O, we have got a BIOS flash button and also a clear CMOS, very handy to have. We have got a Thunderbolt port at the top there, so 40 gigabits per second, Type C. HDMI display port, very handy for doing some troubleshooting. There's 4 USB 2, the top one will be our one for the flashing the BIOS. Got a 5 gig LAN, have red USB ports, these are 4 10 gigabit ports. Also got a 10 gig Type C below that as well. Our Wi-Fi 7 antenna points. We've also got a microphone in, line out, and finally an SP diff. So that was a look at the MSI MAG B860 Tomahawk Wi-Fi. Let me know what you think about it in the comments box below. We've also got non-K series processors released with these boards as well, so that's the perfect thing to fit to this, especially if you're not going to do any overclocking. Can save yourself some money there as well. Pretty feature packed though, considering it is a B series board. Loads of I/O on the back, especially a couple of Type Cs. It's always nice to see. No pun intended. But we'll leave the links for this in the description box when it's available. And then of course, let me know if there's anything else you'd like to know and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you enjoyed this video, please get subscribed and ding the bell. We have got some other previews coming up for the channel as well. And then some builds very soon as well. Thank you all for watching. Thank you to MSI for sending this out for me to look at. And I'll see you all in the next one.